Paul Weidner, welcome back to the podcast. Great to have you again.
Thank you. Great to be back.
We're going to dive in, parents and athletes. This one's going to be for both of you. And it's probably, I think, a great idea if you listen to this together so you both have a great understanding of what proper thinking looks like. So that's what we're going to get into today. How do we control our thoughts? When should we be thinking? When should we not be thinking? What should we be thinking about? And we're not, this could go on for 2 hours. We're not going to cover all the thoughts possible, but we really want to try to provide some clarity on when is the time to think and when is the time to try to turn it off and what's kind of in between those things. So that's what we're going to do today. Is again, just kind of talk about thought control and what thoughts are the most useful for sport, for whatever sport activity you're into. And again, this will be a little bit different in different sports and stuff like that, but I think we're gonna give you some great ideas on a great direction on how to take this. So Paul, I'm gonna let you dive in. We were talking before the podcast a little bit. I want you to kick things off and share your thoughts on this matter.
Sure. Yeah. Just in terms of when I think about somebody that's an overthinker, I think about two different ways that we can go with this. The first way is more of like a human characteristic and kind of a life trait that certainly you as parents are going to know a lot more about in regards to your kid than anybody else because you know them deeply and you know them well. And that can be whether or not, if you may describe them as like, man, they overthink a lot of things. A lot of times that would be considered like ruminating thoughts. So like repetitive thought patterns that don't really serve us in any meaningful way, but it's just a sign of a real lack of being present where their feet are at any given time. So the athlete or the human themselves that's experiencing the ruminating thoughts, sometimes I think it gets justified a lot in our own brains as I'm preparing for an event. So like I'm okay with thinking about it in an obsessive, ruminating, kind of difficult way, because to not do that feels like I'm not preparing or I'm not looking forward to that event. And in general, like in a lot of ways, that does not serve the athlete. And I'm not here necessarily to be able to give you every answer as to how to stop doing that. But I think it's good to create clarity about a classic overthinker as a human, which is probably a lot of like ruminating, repetitive, anxious thoughts leading into a certain event. So if you notice that at home with your athlete, maybe be able to identify that a little bit easier and a little bit better with them, instead of calling it overthinking, call it, unhelpful or ruminating thought patterns. Because one of the things that we know to be true as mental performance coaches is that oftentimes the advice of I need you to think less or I need you to not think is very difficult or impossible to achieve. So it's a lot more about having the ability to be intentional and direct with your thoughts and more singular with your thought patterns, as opposed to ruminating thoughts, which kind of brings us to the other area that I would want to talk about with this. And that's, let's say you're in the batter's box or you're at the free throw line or whatever, and we have kind of best case scenario, next best case scenario, and then worst case scenario in that order of thought patterns that we would want to have. The best case scenario in those moments would be kind of a thoughtless state. So we've talked about this before. That's what it feels like to be in the zone, or the psychological term would be in a state of flow. So like that's really the best case scenario for an athlete to be in. The problem with that is that it's really hard for being in the zone and being in a state of flow and anxiety to exist at the same time. It's really difficult for being in the zone and fears and frustrations and any sort of negative emotions to exist at the same time. And we all know that as we're playing sport, those emotions oftentimes are an inevitable part of it. That's part of competing. And so for us to say that first one of like this thoughtless mindset is what we're after at all times, I think that's a really difficult thing to chase. Which brings us to the second best case scenario, which is more of a singular, intentional, direct thought pattern. And that's something we can control. So that would be like your power phrases. That would be like your just trying to really narrow things down to what's helpful in your thoughts and go from there. And then the worst case scenario would be cluttered, multiple, classic overthinking in the batter's box. That's like worst case scenario. So in my mind as a mental performance coach, I know I'm getting long-winded here, but it's if you go up to an athlete and say, "What are you thinking right now?" He says, "Nothing. My mind's super clear." You go, "Great, have at it, man. That's awesome." What you want to be armed with is number two, so you can avoid number three. So if you're at number one, great. Be armed with number two, which is like a plan for singular directional thought, intentional thought, so that you can avoid the cluttered overthinking. So got super long-winded there. I apologize, but those are the two different areas that I think about when I think of overthinking.
No, that's great. I think that, and parents and athletes. So let's get into each one of those areas a little bit more, dive a little deeper into it. So I mean, basically, I think what Paul's talking about is off the field, just any time other than games, and what we're thinking about, and the classic overthinking, the classic. I think a lot of high achievers, high performers. So if you're listening to this, like, it's normal to have all these thoughts, concerns about the game, thoughts about the game, but just, again, like Paul said, like a lot of kids just have this. A lot of adults have this. So here's a couple of my thoughts on, and you said it great. Parents being able to recognize, is my son or daughter one of these people? And again, it's not a good or bad thing. It just, some kids tend to be more, have more ruminating thoughts, as Paul said. So how do we organize those? How do we make them useful, helpful to us? A couple of thoughts on that, and Paul, give me your feedback on this.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, we have to be aware of them. So to Paul's point, oftentimes kids will have thoughts, athletes will have these thoughts over and over again. They're repetitive. They should be able to start to recognize that I'm having these repetitive thoughts that aren't helpful, aren't useful to me. Maybe they're repetitive thoughts that are useful. Like, today's going to be a great day. And I think about that over and over again. That's awesome. But that's not usually what happens.
Uh-huh.
About 70% of our thoughts are negative. That's the average for each and every one of us. And the kids are no different. So we have these repetitive negative thoughts or unuseful thoughts. What are they? Have athletes write those down. Parents, have your son or daughter write those down. What are we thinking the day before a game, in game, when we're going to practice, at practice, anything off the field? We'll just leave it at that. Do you have these repetitive negative thoughts? So first we have to be aware of that, self-aware. This is what I do. And it's okay, it's normal. Is this thought useful to me? Is it helpful? If not, we want to figure out positive and or useful thoughts to put in there instead of that. And we just need to create a system of doing that, a belief that that's going to be helpful to us. And then we need to repeat it and do it over and over again. Because we've built up this routine of the negative, repetitive thoughts, we need to flip that routine. So we need to recognize, be self-aware when we're doing it, and then we need to change it. And parents, this is super important. Why hopefully you're on this podcast today, is we don't want to reiterate negative thoughts. We don't want them to overthink. And we'll get into this in game situations. We want them to be clear about what they're thinking, understand that they control their thoughts. They've just been built up a pattern of negative thinking or unuseful thinking. They have control over this, but we play a big role in this. Let's help them to switch this around. So having great conversations, athletes with the parents, parents with the athletes. What are you thinking about leading up to a game? What are you thinking about in practice? Any off the field situations, and then we'll get into on the field. So do those two things. Write down negative or unuseful thoughts, especially the repetitive ones, and then figure out what you want to replace it with. Useful, positive, good thoughts. That's a great place to start off the field. Paul, what do you got?
No, I think that's really, really good. I think, to your point, oftentimes, if it's a repetitive thought that's positive, that will probably just come out as somebody that's very joyful and excited for whatever is going to happen. But most of the time, I love that 70% that you talked about, because the brain is almost always trying to do what it perceives as being protective to us. So when we look ahead to certain events, a lot of times it thinks about those events in a negative way, because it's trying to help us, and so we think about all the negatives instead of the positives that go into that. So that's the biggest thing is you'll be able to recognize whether those thoughts are helpful and unhelpful probably by the emotions or whatever it brings out in them. So don't feel like you got to be a mind reader. Just read the situation and see what you think it is. And so that's the biggest thing I would say. And now we'll move on to what's happening in the batter's box, on the field, on the court, whatever that may be.
Love it. Love it. So let's do that. I think we covered that really well. So on the field in the game, I love how Paul broke it down kind of 1, 2, 3. We want to be clear. We want to be in the flow, but that is a hard thing to chase and a hard place to get to. So I love it. Having one thought. Tell us more. Let's give some really good examples for the athletes, for the parents of what that might look like. Maybe how do I get what's the one thought? There's different situations for this. And again, different sports present different situations. Let's back up from the batter's box a little bit. Like going into a game, and my thoughts are all over the place. I'm in number 3, right?
Yep.
I'm nervous, I'm scared, I'm fearful. I want to do well. I want our team to win. I want to go 4 for 4. I want to score 20. Any any give us some examples of what a clear, concise, we call it a mantra,
Hmm.
or 2, 3, 4 words. Like what are your thoughts? Where can people go if that's the situation leading up to a game?
Yeah, I think leading into a game, a great thing to focus your mind on is some of the physical actions that are that are totally within your control, that go into the preparation of a game. So rather than thinking ahead to what's going to happen in my first at bat, I actually need to think ahead about the fact that I need to do Jagger bands and all these different types of things that go into playing a game. And so when those physical actions are 100% controllable, which is usually what happens in pregame. That's a great thing to singularly fix our mind on, so that we can be present in the present moment. It's a little bit more difficult when you get in the batter's box because then physical actions become reactive to what's happening and the result is not always controllable. But anything leading up to a game, I don't think it needs to be more complex than just focusing on your next task of preparation because it's almost totally within your control, if that makes sense.
I love that. I would say that's great. And athletes, parents, if you can just solely focus on that, okay, now I'm doing my daily work. Now I'm going through the layup line, whatever it might be, and I'm in that moment and I'm just doing that great. I do think that gets at some point there's downtime and we shift our thoughts, get excuse me, can get away from that a little bit. I think it's also a great idea to have 1 or 2 mantras, things, controllable things, like Paul said, that I'm going to bring to this game today. I'm going to have great energy today.
Mhm.
Controllable things, like I'm going to be a great teammate today. I'm going to be super resilient today. Things again you can focus on within your control that are positive or useful. Throw those into your pregame prep. 1 or 2 things that you know you're going to rely on when you start getting in the third spot and lots of thoughts are creeping through my head and negative thoughts. I'm going to have 1 or 2 positive things I go to. You can watch all kinds of videos on YouTube. I remember this Aaron Donald video. He's getting ready for a Super Bowl game. Look that one up. His pregame, he's talking to himself. He's hyping himself. I've worked really hard. I know you've seen this one, Paul. I've worked really hard. It's going to be a great day. I'm happy to be here. Things, and this is a professional, an all pro guy, knowing that I need this,
Mhm.
knowing that the distractions can take over, knowing that the negative thoughts can creep in. He's got something he goes to. So athletes out there, develop some type of mantra, some type of system. And again, maybe you're at number 1 and you're like Paul said, man, I'm just free and clear today. Like, look at the beautiful sky. I'm happy to be here with my teammates. Let's play. but we want to stay in that for sure in that number two and not creep to number three, where number two gives us one direct area of focus. So get into some thought control with that. Really good. Okay, so now we go to the batter's box or the free throw line, or we're taking the snap at quarterback.
Mhm.
Thoughts on, again, let's not go through, we already talked about clear minded, being in flow
Yep.
is the place to be.
Yep.
Number three, negative thoughts. We know we're jumbled. Parents, you can ask the athletes after, how did you feel? Were you number three? Were you number one? Were you number two? Let's get some thoughts and a direct focus in number two,
Yep.
so that maybe we can get to number one instead of number three. So what would some of those things be, Paul? Number twos.
Yeah. So general is good and positive is good is great. So general, positive, just things that we don't want to hear. Like if I was to ask that question, I asked it to we had 100 kids in here last night, and all of them were taking rounds of batting practice in the batting cage, and it was a mental performance focused night. So asking them what their singular thought is, this is a great time actually for this podcast because I got done doing it last night with these kids. And the answers that skewed towards the incorrect, so to speak, and in my opinion, as a mental performance coach, would be like, keep my hands up, like hand placement, or like use my legs really well. Those are very internal, mechanical focused things that are not wrong as far as their ability to have success, but it's wrong for the timing that we're talking about. And that's an important distinction. So it's not the time and place to be thinking about our hand placement or what our feet are doing or whatever, because it takes a focus away from the external and brings it very internal in a bad way. We want to have external focus because we're trying to react to what the pitcher is doing, and we're trying to let basically our eyes and our general concentration take over as opposed to our internal and getting stuck with that. So mechanical, not good. And then other than that, the only answers that I thought were necessarily, maybe incorrect were the ones that kids were absolutely certain that it was like, well, I just am trying to not think. Goes
Okay.
back to what we talked about. So I don't need to reiterate that, but just trying to then arm them with something that they can go to. But things that were great answers. Smash the baseball, stay through the middle, which I don't think errs towards mechanical. I think that's an external enough thing, like stay through the middle, drive a gap, uh, hunt fastball, which is more of an approach thing, but it's still fine. Pitcher has no chance. I'm the man. Like things that you can put it on a loop if you want to, but just general things that are positive, that pump you up, that seem helpful in those moments so that it's singular focus. So does the term I'm the man in and of itself have value? I don't know, but I know that it has more value than don't swing at a ball in the dirt. What if I do this? Umpire, coach, like those don't have value. So if you're being intentional about what you're putting in your mind, that is more valuable than the cluttered thoughts. So gave you some what I think is wrong, gave you some what I think is right. One kid said that he wanted to hit a home run, and I was like, okay, how about just like barrel up a baseball? Maybe not like a result based thing too much as far as what we want to do. But again, all those are probably fine.
Love it. Covered that really good. I think a couple, Paul kept saying this, and it's super important. One thing, and try it and practice it. And if it feels good and it helps you to be clear and intentional about what you're trying to do, not cluttered with multiple thoughts, I don't care what that one thing is. We would generally say we want it to be something controllable, but some guys, it's just maybe it frees them up to say, man, I'm just trying to hit home runs.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Like if that works for you, it works for you. I would say generally that can cause a problem because now I didn't hit a home run and now what?
Hmm.
But whatever works. But it's one thing. It's funny that you did this yesterday. Last Friday, we were taking BP with the high school kids, and a couple of them I said they were coming out super frustrated with their rounds. It was off a machine in a cage, coming out super frustrated. I'm like, what are you trying to do? Well, I'm trying to stay through the middle, be on time, have my hands in a certain place, uh, feel free and easy. This was one guy, one guy, four or five things, and I was like, man, pick one of those. Pick pick one. Just pick one. He goes in the next time and narrows it down to three. The next time But it's super normal, athletes and parents. It's super normal. We work so hard. I want to have my hands here. I want to stay back. I want to get into my front side. I want to whatever, all these things. It's super normal, but we have to be able to put all that on the back burner once we step in and we're just trying to be reactive, as Paul said. It feels unnatural. I get it. Partially it feels unnatural because we never practice it. So you're on Monday nights in the cages doing this, and we're in the cages on Friday doing this. That's what you have to do. You have to practice it.
Mhm.
What is going to be my one singular thought? And practice. And again, if it doesn't feel good and you play a few games and you're like, that didn't really free me up, try a different singular
Mhm.
thought.
Yep.
Everybody's different on this. I know my kids, Drew has had smash as a singular final thought since I don't know when. He was like 10. He tried some other ones in here and there, and I was always come back to that.
Yep.
So super important. I think if you take nothing else out from this podcast, parents and athletes, I want to be one singular thought. I want to be in flow or totally clear,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, and I'm sure you do this all the time. I ask the guys coming out of the cage, what do you want to be thinking? Oh, I don't want to be thinking anything.
Mhm.
Right answer. So why are you thinking about 5 different things?
Yeah, exactly. You just proved that that's really hard to do, if
Right,
not
right.
impossible.
Well, I think if I think about 5 different things, but I love what you said, Paul, like, no, let's go 1 then. Then that gives us a chance. If we're at 4 or 5, we got no chance. We got no chance when you're trying to work on, but again, it's super normal, but try to narrow it down to one thought, and that keeps us away from several. And then every once in a while it'll pop in where you're in flow and you're in the zone, and recognize that, and recognize the process that helped you get there, and that one singular thought that lit that up, and take it from there. Really good, Paul. Thank you. Anything to wrap this baby up?
No, look, the reason why it's good to talk with parents, 'cause parents know their kids really well. And so when we talk about, especially that first half of the anxious, ruminating thoughts that tend to be unhelpful, like nobody's going to have a better insight into the little things that let you know whether or not that's taking place than you. So use that to your advantage and pour into them like you always do.
Yeah, and I'm going to say last 2 things. One for the parents, and I've been there. So this isn't throwing stones. In games, we have to say less.
Mhm.
They're usually at number 3. If we say a bunch of things, play this, do that, it's just adding to the thoughts.
Mhm.
So say less. I know it's really hard, but say less. Um, let them just play and be free. Be free. I love that. Just let them be free and play. And athletes, the same thing. Understand when you're overthinking and you're overanalyzing. It shouldn't happen during action on the field. It should not happen. If you need to come in, sit down in the dugout and you got a couple minutes, um, and you want to think about, well, was I in the right position for that, or whatever? Okay. Soon as you run back out on the field, it's just play free. There's a time and a place for thinking, and overthinking we never want, but singular, positive, useful thoughts, okay. But it's not when you're about to throw a pitch. It's not when you're about to field the ball. It's not when you're about to swing. It's not when you're about to shoot. Those aren't the times that's the time to just let go and be free, or have the one thought. Awesome, Paul. Thanks a lot, man. Parents, athletes, we'll be back again. Hope this was useful. Let us know if you have any questions about this. Write them in the comments, shoot me an email, and we'll be back again with another podcast really soon. Thanks, Paul.
Love it. Thank you.